please take the roll.
Margie Davy,
I'm here.
Lisa Moore,
Here.
Jacob Claymeyer,
Here.
Alyssa Ranke, Vic Oliver, Brad Spanbauer,
Here.
Joe Stevenson,
Here.
Jaden Zern, and Paul Trader.
Here.
6 present. We have quorum.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any public comment tonight, but I would like to take that time to ask Paul if he could introduce himself and welcome.
Okay, I was just practicing a little bit with Joe. He said, well, what got you interested in the Sustainability Board? But did you all read my application or no? Okay. Okay, I lived in Oshkosh since '98, but as a young adult, I did a lot of recreation and work here. Actually, met my wife when there was still a Park Plaza and a Walden bookstore. She was the assistant manager, and I was a really good customer. So here we are, almost 46 years later, and when we got done with grad school, we decided to settle here in Oshkosh because it was convenient for a lot of reasons. So I'm a nurse, retired nurse practitioner, did family practice, urgent care, that sort of thing. I volunteer at the St. Francis Free Clinic for the last couple of years. I was a late bloomer to begin with, and I'm trying to bloom again. A year ago, I enrolled in a course of study called Population Health Management through Medical College of Wisconsin. And then I was telling Joe, so I was trying to think about, now that I'm retired, I got time, and I'm finishing this class, what would I do next? And so I was looking at some of the different boards and things that are available, because it says volunteer for Oshkosh. And I looked at what this committee or board is charged with doing, and I was telling Joe, it's like, well, that's a lot of the stuff that I've been studying. We were talking about the whole environment of the city, sanitation, the streets, the housing, affordable housing, healthcare, all education, all those different realms. Plus, like tonight, we're going to talk about plants and things like that, to make it a nice city. Well, those are considered the social determinants of health. It's like, well, that's what I've been studying. So it's like, hey, I got some fresh knowledge about that. And it's like, okay, I guess it was kind of meant to be.
Well, welcome.
So,
we're happy to have you aboard.
you're
That
welcome.
is an aspect that we didn't have represented on the board, so that's great. We all bring a little
Right.
something different. Well, a lot of people bring the same thing. Or they bring different aspects of it, let's put it that way. Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Approval of minutes for February 3rd's meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, this is still reading LOMO's. Oh yeah, that's what we want, LOMO, not NOMO. LOMO Spring Summer Discussion. And I think Emma you sent out stuff.
Yep, on Friday, I believe, I resent out
Yeah,
all
there's
of
that.
last year's documents. Again, if anybody wants to take a stab at updating them, we can start. It's March now, so if we want to start putting that stuff out there, just let me know if you have a chance to look at those. And
was the conversation with you guys to move away from, to not have a NOMO and do a LOMO instead, or to do both?
Yeah, if you were
or was
able to
it-
make more meetings,
I
you
know.
could know these things. Yes, Joe, we did. We decided not to do the NOMO
Okay.
because we don't feel that it's as beneficial
Sure.
as keeping higher grass all year long. Everything below 8 inches, of course, to meet the code, but we thought that would be more relevant. So we're not going to promote NOMO May anymore.
No mo is going away.
Yes.
That's going to be our new slogan.
Yeah, so now we're going to LOMO
Okay.
for the spring and summer. So, which means not so much low at mow at low. Couldn't we come up with something that's not so alliterative?
Not a tongue twister.
And, but something that we're encouraging people to let their grass grow longer, as in taller. And to
Right.
keep it taller and not mow down to that 1 inch level that doesn't do anybody any good. The grass doesn't grow as well, the plants don't. The the little bugs and butterflies and stuff don't like that, so. And I think that Brad had been one who'd given us quite a bit of information about how this was going to be better. We also had, what's the guy's name? Jaden? Somebody from
Jacob Cluza?
Jacob,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not you, it's him.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We had a speaker from UW Extension that came in and gave us a lot of information, so. And I'm not certain, but I think that that Oshkosh Media was going to cut that and use that just as filler on Channel 10 and 2, so, which is great, because that's a great way to inform people. So, is there any other discussion about, I'm going to get this right, low mo forever? That's what I'm calling it now.
So the documents, Emma, that you shared just need some updating or some edits to them.
Yeah, that's everything from last year. So if you want to use that, that works with me. Otherwise, if you want to create your own stuff or just send me, sources. I know last month Jacob said that UW Extension was going to create some stuff too. So we can definitely blast anything and everything. Just
He
need
did seem
some
to
stuff.
like us.
Yeah.
And
do that for us.
what is did we decide, are we still doing the sign up?
I was gonna ask, for the no-mo, you wanted people to register for that, but for the low-mo, would that be required or just?
I think
Yes,
we
on that.
had decided we wouldn't say no to that because it allows us to get their help me out
Contact
here,
information.
their contact information that way, so that we can continue to send them information. But that there's no need for it because their grass would never be over
The
the
8
limit.
inches.
So,
Okay.
so the ordinance doesn't need to kick in.
We do have everybody's contact info since we've been doing No Mow May. So I don't know if like this year, if people stop in or they call looking to register, if we can just take their contact info and add them to that list. I mean, we can send email blasts that way. I don't know, to make people sign up. I don't know,
For
there's some
nothing.
pros and
That-
cons,
right.
and
That would get pushed back. That's
Yeah.
stupid.
But I do think we should start putting stuff out there just so people are aware that that won't exist.
Exactly.
Mm.
Especially
And
the people
Facebook
that
page.
registered before.
Yep.
Right, I think it's a great idea. I've done a version of that on my lawn for years, and the lawn does survive better. You don't,
How much?
and you don't have to water it. I mean, so it's another water conservation
Mhm.
is an idea. So are you doing any other public service announcements or any other promotion within the community, just so you get a wider participation of people cutting the grass less? Are you doing any of that? Is that?
That's the plan. Everything that I sent out
Yeah.
is everything that went out last year. So
Okay.
we had tried to put it everywhere, not
Okay.
just social media. I think we had like a press release, or was an ad in the Herald and
Okay.
all of that. So I don't know if anybody has language they want on those. Otherwise, staff can take a stab at it and try to get some of
Okay.
that stuff out too. Just wanted to keep that conversation going. So.
And it is March already, so.
Yep.
we're gonna get on this.
Yeah, we wanted this out by, that's what I was gonna ask, do you have a deadline? Like, does any of this need to be,
I think it's good if
reviewed or
you give us
approved?
a deadline.
Okay, let me look when stuff went out last year, and I'll send a follow-up email.
Okay,
And let you guys know.
deadline forthcoming.
I know there are some of us who work better with
Yes,
deadlines.
I will
Yeah.
do
Some
that
of us
one.
do.
Some of us do, yes.
Yes.
The due date is the due date.
Exactly.
I have a more like general question about this. I don't know if you've ever all tried to mow your yard at like a high height, but a lot of lawnmowers like will max out at like say 3 or 4 inches, and the ordinance is 8 inches. Does anybody have some like practical tips on how to keep your lawn higher? I mean, it's mowing less frequently, certainly, but once it reaches that 8-inch height, are you supposed to cut it back down
A
to?
machete usually works.
I was gonna say that's one of those sides.
I can tell you that we did just, my husband's been buying toys because it's spring, So he's got a new lawnmower that's like a Roomba, only for your lawn. And its maximum height is 4.5 inches,
I was
so
gonna
we've
say,
already agreed
most I
that
think
we're
you
gonna
go up to
keep it at
4-ish.
4.5.
Yeah. So,
but 8 is, yeah.
I think, isn't the whole point just don't get it down near the ground, just at least leave it longer?
The point, I think, is to not mow more than half the height at a time, right?
Right.
So if
Okay.
it's 8 inches, you could take it down to 4.
4.
That doesn't mean that when it's 2, you should take it down to 1, obviously, although I have people on my block who seem to think that's what that means. So, yeah. So anyway, this was really cool. If you want to, if you want to know, just talk to me later. I'll give you my address. I'll tell you when the little Roomba thing runs. It's got a different name, but, and I'm excited to see it.
But those kinds of tips and tricks might be good things to try and include in some of this press release or FAQ or other. I mean, essentially, I think basically tell people like set your lawnmower to the highest setting.
Yeah, just
kind of the way to-
at least that, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that there are sources on there already addressing that, but if there's updated
Well-
things you want included,
And we can
Please,
shoot you
yeah.
one-liners for Facebook. You know.
exactly, yep.
Yeah, Facebook. Do you do any other media than your public TV channels on cable TV? Do you do it, like, what'd you think about
I think you said it on
the
that.
TV, you know, having somebody from one of the Gravy stations interview you about this idea? Is there any other communities doing this right now?
My experience with media is they ask you. We typically don't get to ask them. They usually ask you, like, they find a story, they think it's interesting, then they contact you and ask you to put it on there.
We
can
can't send
always-
out
we can
press
always
releases.
send them something,
But I want to make sure that we have our message real clear before we
Right,
do that.
sure.
And that's what we're talking about today, is just making sure that we see what was sent out last year. And Emma sent it to everybody that was signed up, but not everybody was signed up, so, yeah. And a lot of that can go out in other ways too then, right? And, yeah, we can work on a press release. That'd be
Perfect.
fun. Yeah. Where's Vic when we need her? I know exactly where she is, and I think she's coming back next month, so we'll get to bring her up to date, speed on everything. Okay, anything else on Lomo? Moving on to chapter 30, landscaping requirements discussion. And we have these awesome lists too, that
Oh, yeah, I
the
didn't
existing
print it out. It was
species
very
list
fine print.
and the upgraded one. I was pretty excited about these, and I printed them out, not so much to bring them tonight, but so I can peruse them at home and decide what I want to plant.
So these are the same lists that Jacob presented on last month. I figured you just want to keep the conversation going. I don't know if you want all of this possibly added to the code. I basically, what are the next steps and what you're looking to do since that presentation.
Has anybody internally looked through this list, or have we sent it over to the forester or anything?
I have not, because I wasn't sure if you
What
wanted
you
all
might want
50
to
of
do.
these additional species in. And I know everybody liked the resilience weight, but we didn't have that discussion. This is the list we want to pursue. So I just need some direction there.
Yeah, I reviewed the existing species list as well as the additional ones. I would move that we incorporate the additional species. Jacob knows what he's talking about in regards to these landscaping plants, and you can see most of them are native on that list. But the existing species list, there are some on there that he had recommended that we had take off. And I think I need to watch the meeting back to remember exactly which ones, but I think we should all really focus on reading this list and seeing if there's any gaps as well. But like the Calgary pear was one that stood out.
Calgary pear, yeah.
Yeah, that should probably be removed.
Yeah, can you scroll down?
Yeah, I think he has those listed on the bottom here.
and the landscaping points are, like, they're like on our landscaping point scale.
Yes.
Yes.
Those are the values you'd be suggesting to incorporate into that.
Well, this is the current one, and then
The additional native species, we would have to add the points, or somebody in planning would have to.
so we had a bunch of recommendations. Like I said, after leaving last meeting, I figured the step was to move forward, but I just wanted to make sure if you're good with this list, I can bring this to staff and we can start having those conversations, unless someone wants to try to associate landscaping values to the species, whatever
Okay, well, Jake did make a motion that we incorporate that, so if anyone wanted to second that,
I'll second.
okay. That's-
And these plants are things that the city is doing on the land and in the park, is it land that the city owns, or what's the?
So
Yeah.
So this is like if you were to come and you have like a development in the city,
Okay.
you're required certain areas that need to be landscaping or landscaped and whatnot.
I glanced over
And
some of it, but it didn't all take.
And it's not, so it's like, it's not for like a single family home. It's more, it's like a regulation process if like a Starbucks or something else comes in and
Or
wants
the
to put-
apartments on
Yeah,
Correct.
so they have
Main
to,
Street.
they have to
and
meet like
what
a
they're putting
landscape
in.
value. And if we
Okay.
put this stuff in, we're kind of like weighting it for them to want to put in natives, because we're hypothetically giving them a little bit like better bang for their buck with these native
Okay.
plants than we were with non-native plants. So it's like an encouragement to do native.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So do we, so like right now, when I look at this list, the 50 additional Wisconsin native species, there's nothing assigned in the landscape point value column, but there is on the resilience weight column. And I think what we discussed last time, correct me if I'm wrong, is if we would want to change the landscaping point value of the native species versus the non-native species, that would have to go through Plan Commission, correct?
It has to go through Plan Commission, and it would actually require a change to the zoning ordinance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that what we're saying, or is that what we want to suggest or recommend?
I think that's what we want to recommend.
Okay.
We want to make these available so the developers see them when they're working on whatever their plans are.
Uh-huh.
But I see this also as a list that we can then recommend homeowners look at.
Yeah,
It's
for
right
sure.
there on the website if you know how to find it.
Yeah.
And we could maybe even print it out separately or put it on our site, the sustainability site or something, so that it gives, I mean, I don't know a bush, I know a bush from a tree, okay? I don't know what it's called or how good it is. So having something like this in a little handy dandy catalog could be very helpful,
Mhm.
so.
I'm just thinking about, again, like I guess in terms of the, like, do we want resilience weight to equal landscaping point value? Or what is the way in which, are those numbers the same? Are they different? Are we calculating them a certain way?
Emma, can you go
So-
back to
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
existing
asking.
species list?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
from
okay.
last meeting, Jacob recommended, so like, let's just take this for instance, so obviously 4 would have a 1, and then he recommended like if there was a 6 here, that would be like a 1.1, a 7 would be like a 1.2, an 8 would be like a 1.3. Is that how you'd want to that's my question. Like I can show this list as is, but there's no
Yeah.
point value associated to
Right.
it. So we would probably be like, well, that's 1.1. But if you want to see a higher point value associated to those, species that have a resilience weight of 9, I need to know, what kind of point value you feel those,
Well,
I guess,
and
get.
This hasn't really been cross-referenced, has it, with what we're currently using?
Yeah, and I think that's probably what needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that has to happen first, because right now you get so many points for a tall tree and
Mhm.
less points for a medium tree, and
And I think-
you put in a flower and that's like, you've got to have 10 of them to get anything.
And I think that was kind of like our original, like if you take the ordinance and it says like deciduous tree is, I'll just shoot 30 points, right?
Mhm.
And then, but now if you use a like native deciduous tree, let's say it's 32 points or it's 35 points, I don't know.
Hmm.
I think wasn't that our kind of direction, was to try to encourage.
Yeah, we want the weight of the
Yeah.
point to have more value for the
Yeah.
native
Yeah.
plant.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
And 1.2 just seems like not enough to like
And I don't know.
convince
Right.
someone to plant it.
I don't really have a
That's-
sense of what that,
And thinking of cost too, maybe some of
Yeah.
the non-native ones are cheaper for developers based on where they buy them, so we want them to purchase the native plant.
Right. That's I guess, like when I look at a fraction of a whole number as a decider between whether you're going to choose one plant or another plant, a 0.1 change in landscaping value when you're trying to get however many points within a development, I don't know that that's going to necessarily sway anybody. So I think the native species need to have a higher landscape value because they have a higher resilience value.
Absolutely. I think we're all saying the same thing and agreeing on that.
Yeah.
The thing is that
It's a
in the
different scale, makes
existing
sense.
code,
Yeah.
there aren't any points that I recall. Everything's an even number, right, Emma? As far as I think. I know you don't deal with that too much too. Do you remember,
When I
Joe?
reviewed, there is some that are worth that, marginal 10% difference that
Yeah.
are preferred.
But if
Um,
it's a 10-point tree and you're gonna give it 11, it's still a whole number, is what I'm saying. I don't think there's really anything where we're giving it 1.1.
Oh.
And I guess
There
that's
is
not,
right
Yeah,
here,
except
right?
for these, all of these. These are currently in the code as 1.1.
and these would be cluster plantings though, so I think that's the
Yeah.
other thing, is these would be, like, you're gonna get a point for a lily, but you're not gonna have one lily. You're gonna
Right.
probably have a dozen of them, so it's gonna end up
Right,
being.
and in a lot of those, if I know that they spread,
Yeah.
so.
So I guess I don't have a good sense to what the like scale is, if maybe planning just wants to look at it and see.
I think that it's going to take both planning and the forester to kind of make a recommendation, but maybe we should suggest making a committee, a subcommittee that has one or two of us
Mhm.
and working with somebody from planning, and then we could take it to the forester, so that I don't want to burden the staff with with doing this, but we need it to be done right, so we need their help.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
No, I like that idea. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess if you're good with the list, can definitely start having those conversations and then follow up if we want to pursue the subcommittee.
Because I feel like we did look at a list where it would list a species and then it would say like per 20 or per 10.
Yep.
Right, so you
Right.
would get like a point, you would get a certain number of points based on the quantity of whatever you planted.
Right, that's
Yeah.
how the code reads now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You could make it real simple and just throw on like a 10 or 25%, whatever percent you want, like rider onto it. Just say that if you pick something from the native species list, its equivalent is on the like non-native species. This is going to be 10% higher or whatever. I don't know.
That's
Instead
sort
of
of
going
kind
through
of-
each individual one and trying to grade them all, we could.
Well, and I think that's, again, sort of what we talked about a bit last time. I was trying to find, because what we also don't want to do is create a scenario where a developer is just using sort of like one or two types of plants, but they're gonna maybe pick those because they're the native ones, but it's gonna
Yeah.
maybe get their points. So we also discussed maybe like a 75-25 split, so 75 native, 25 non-native. We're also looking at incentivizing diversity. I'm just looking at through my notes here that I took last time. Like must choose however many of this like grouping. So maybe there's 20 perennial plants, right, that are going to be more of the smaller kind of Forbes size plants, and you have to choose at least 10 of the 20 for the development, or something like to that effect.
To get some diversity.
To
in
get the
into
diversity in
plants,
there.
Yeah.
I think we chose like a smaller number, but still something that's better than non-native. I think a landscaper would almost kind of be. If I were the developer, I'd be mad at my landscaper if there was an option to have like technically 10% less cost, right? Hopefully, and they didn't take it. Even if it's only 10%, that's still. I think like let's say the grand scheme of things, you plant, I don't know, 20 native trees when you were going to plant 22. Those two trees are still what, $200, $400 a piece. I think from a grand scheme of things, losing those two trees is probably okay if everything else is native. And then
Yeah.
from the developer's perspective, they're saving $1,000. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
On trees and labor too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's a good
so
point.
Yeah, and maintenance.
I think it would be helpful for the group if we could pull up chapter 30. It's page 12 of the article IX, not the greatest with Roman numerals, but the landscaping requirements. Page 12 shows how many points are required for different types of developments, and then below that it shows the current list. And it kind of seems like already there is like a higher point value for native plants. I would like to see that amount of point value difference increase by say another 10% or so. page 12, at the top there, it shows landscaping component and then the type of landscaping. So it's showing the different types of size plants that are required in these different areas. And then the total amount of points that are required, and then it even goes into the different zoning districts, how it's allocated to the total number of points. But I think I was just wanted to show this in regards to what Brad was saying, which is like the diversity factor, right, in the different sizes, right? It's not like you just get a certain amount of points that you have to fill. There is some provisions in there that show what types of different size plants are needed. Yeah.
What is a tall tree?
One that's labeled a tall
Definition.
tree. There's different
Consult the
categories,
list.
plant categories in the list. I think that starts on page 19. Is the
Yeah, down further yet.
For better or worse, Oshkosh's ordinances are usually a little
Go back
different than
one.
surrounding communities. Tall trees, I've always 1.5 caliber and grows up to 60 feet, I think is what normal I've seen.
And see here, it's giving you the initial diameter that it has to, the trunk has to have when planted. But,
Huh.
and how many points you get for it then. so.
Uh,
But because that is all broken down, like if you have a parking lot, you have to have so many tall trees in the end of each island, for example.
Yeah, so this is what I think. I think if we can classify all the natives into a shade tree or into it, like we can classify all those into these buckets, and then just say the equivalent native is going to give you a 10% higher value.
Yeah.
Says that
Of
right
those
at the bottom.
others. Oh, does it? Am I reiterating exactly what it says?
well, it's just saying
Oh.
the 10%
Oh, yes.
increase
Oh,
is
okay.
Point
the
values will be increased by 10% for the use of Wisconsin native plant species. Right there, John.
Reading is not my strong suit, apparently.
There you go.
So that is already in there,
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering how.
but
Is
it
there
need to be
depended
higher.
on, it depended on what the code was counting for native plants. If
Was
we're
that
able
list
to add
everywhere?
additional species,
Yeah.
that can broaden that too.
Yeah.
And we can practically double it here.
Because.
Yeah, so this is what's
Listed now.
currently. So yeah, I
And
guess
Mhm.
that
What does the star denote native? What denotes whether it's native or not?
I believe. I have to go to the bottom.
I think the point values
Yes.
are already
I think
adjusted
that's-
as
Natives.
well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
stars.
Yeah. See, 1.1 per
An
20.
additional
Okay.
10% has been added.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's already in there.
So we just want to add more species. Is basically what
Oh,
we're doing.
here's what I was
Oh.
thinking of, where it says 1.1 points per 20.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So with the little plants, you have to have 20 now.
So is that what you just want species added, or do you want the resilience weight added as well?
And or do we want an additional? Do we want the percentage for the native species to be increased from 10?
Here's a proposal that is an option. I'd like to add the new species to our code, as well as the information about resilience. Strictly just the information, because it has inherent value to the people that are developing these different areas. And then part of that proposal would also be to improve from 10% to 20%. Because we've seen that there are a lack of native plants in the current landscaping, and we want to incentivize it further. But I'm also open to different versions of that proposal. Yeah.
Well, we do have the other motion on the table already.
Oh, okay.
So we either have to pull that back or amend it for the 20%.
What was the original motion?
Yeah. To add the list, I believe.
Just to add the
oh,
existing, the additional species to our code.
I will rescind that if that's
Or we could do
possible.
it in
As long
two
as it's
motions.
okay with the
Yes.
seconder. Yes, okay.
Okay.
And start over again. No, I want to.
Okay. I will make, there's also one other aspect I wanted to talk about that Jacob had said to address the different amounts of diversity in the plantings. It was talking about this 1.1 per 20, and he had recommended instead of grouping them per 20, because you're essentially blocking away 20 points with one type of plant, so you have the same type of plant around a certain area. If we were able to fractionalize that to say you have 0.05 points per plant, and they can use whatever mix they want, They can
Well-
have one plant of black-eyed Susan if they'd like, and then they can intermix it with different species.
I think this might be mix and match though, the way it is anyway.
Yeah,
Because
we need clarity from
the way-
if I was enforcing it, I would say you can mix and match, but I guess I don't know how staff does it. And if we wanted it, you could also simply just say 1 per 20 perennial plantings. Like you could put a thing after it that just said perennial plantings of any kind, like. If you-
From
if we
this
re-
list,
If we really, yeah,
Well,
if we
and
really
since
needed
this
to.
is all
list.
But
the
it
list
might
we
be,
have.
it might be mix and match to begin with. We would have to double check on it.
It should be written on there if it is though.
Yeah.
So we do need to find out if that's mix and match. Mix or
Hmm.
match.
I think to effectively like make a motion that isn't just all words that we all have to agree on right now,
Mhm.
we need to be like looking at the exact what we'd like to propose, right? And we have like different bits and pieces kind of that we've discussed, but
Mhm.
then we can, if we get like say a red line going on, then we can more effectively.
And yeah, we can certainly move forward your motion. If it's a moot point, they'll just tell us. Like if we're saying we want it to be mix and match and then planning says it already is mix and match, then whatever. If it's not, then we'll put it in the
Well,
ordinance.
and maybe what you're saying is that instead of making a motion for what this is gonna look like, maybe we should just be saying we want to establish a subcommittee to work on it. And this is what we'd like them to come back to us with?
Mm.
I don't know, is that,
I mean, ultimately, what you're looking for is direction, right? You don't even need a formal motion if
Right,
you want to.
right. Like if you want me to take a stab at redlining this and then sending it out, or if we want to create a subcommittee and then you can, redline my red line, that's an option too.
well, the only advantage I'm thinking if we do create some kind of a subcommittee for it, then we can have more than 2 of us working on it, but 2 of us could work on it with the staff now.
Mm.
So we don't really have to have it be a
Mhm.
subcommittee. It wouldn't have to be noticed for that. So I guess it depends on how many of us actually want to actively work on this and how we're gonna make that work with a staff person that can advise on this. Maybe you wanna check on all this for us, huh? And let us know.
Okay, so you just want me to check on everything that got
Oh,
brought up?
everything you just wrote down.
Okay.
No. I meant maybe we should find out what the staff, how the staff would like us to move forward with collating these together and assigning points to it, what would the recommendation be?
I'm happy to make a couple motions of our recommendations, just so that's
So
really
it's in
clear.
there?
Yeah, and maybe
Okay.
instead of combining them all, we'll split it up, and then we can talk about each point individually. So,
Okay.
I think the first, or one of the things that we talked about was increasing, so I'll make a motion to increase the 10% addition for the native plant species to 20% as a recommendation from the Sustainability Advisory Board.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? I think we can do this with a voice vote. Okay, voice vote, all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Another motion would be to adopt the additional species list into the code along with the resilience weights that are shown in both the additional species list and the existing species list as shown in the meeting materials as a recommendation from the Sustainability Advisory Board.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion on that? Seeing none, I think we can do a voice vote again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Have you got that down? Okay.
Another motion I'd make is to take the recommendations from the bottom of the existing species list given by Jacob Kluza in the Wisconsin Extension to remove said plant species from our recommended species list in Chapter 30.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And the last one that I can remember is a motion to allow a mix of different perennial plantings. How do I say this? Let's see. landscaping point value per plant should allow a diversity of perennial plantings to be incorporated. That's not the most clear, but does anybody want to take a stab?
We got it.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want to like say after, it's like 1.1 per 20 of any perennial plantings should be included after that
Right.
line, or somewhere clarifying.
Yes.
Yeah, what they said.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, Brad seconded. Any discussion on this? We're clear on it.
I think so.
Okay.
Good.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Well, we're just getting lots done here. Thanks, Jake.
That was a lot easier, thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion on chapter 30? Landscaping requirements. I think we should move on then. Thank you. That was good, guys. Okay, next thing is city basin maintenance update, and this came about because Mr. Ponzer had attended a meeting a couple of meetings ago and made us aware of some concerns he had near his house. And I have to really thank the staff. They did a stellar job of taking a deep dive into finding out information about this. They provided us with a couple of photos, one that was taken in October of 2017, so an October photo, and the 2024 photo from September, which I assume is brand new, and this is exactly what it looked like when I drove by to look at it too. So obviously there has been a lot of maintenance that's gone on there. And Emma, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I typed up a little update, so I'll just read it, and then if you have questions, we can address them. So community development staff has been working with the Department of Public Works to provide the board an update. So this is in regards to the Baldwin Basin, as Margie explained, behind Mr. Ponzer's home.
Where is this located, please?
Off of New York. If you're going east on New York, it's just south, right before the train tracks.
Okay. Oh.
It's by
Oh,
my
that.
house.
Oh,
Cross
okay.
street.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now we know what it is. Thank you.
So the Department of Public Works has informed staff that they provided Mr. Ponzer with information pertaining to the maintenance of the Baldwin Basin back in summer of 2024, so just before this September photo was taken. And then within that correspondence, Public Works staff sent him a variety of resources, such as fact sheets pertaining to prairie restoration, prescribed burn maintenance, and Wisconsin DNR approved herbicide and pesticide treatment records for this basin. Staff also explained to Mr. Ponzer that these practices are to provide long-term benefits to our city's stormwater basin habitats. In the last month, Public Works staff had reached out to their consultant for more information pertaining to the herbicides that have been used and their environmental impacts. The consultant provided an overview of those herbicides and stated that all chemical applications used at the Baldwin Basin have been approved by Wisconsin DNR. Some of these herbicides were for specific removal of the invasive species Phragmites, which shown in this first photo, which needs to be eradicated with herbicides when it covers too large of an area. And that can't be managed by other practices such as a prescribed burn.
Or pulling it out by the roots?
Correct, yeah. It is important to note that depending on the situation, the city does utilize other management techniques to control invasive species when possible. Community development staff has encouraged the Department of Public Works to continue to properly maintain their stormwater basins so that invasive species don't get to this point and infiltrate sites, and to communicate with adjacent property owners prior to all herbicide and pesticide treatments as well as prescribed burns. So.
One of his primary concerns was the application of herbicides and the health aspects, not just in treating the invasive species, but the human and animal health impacts of those herbicide treatments. Was there any comment on the herbicides used, or could you share which ones they were, and if they're human and animal rated, if you will?
So I guess all that I really know is that like I said, the herbicides and the pesticides are approved by the Wisconsin DNR, and they have been used in like state parks because, they're so people are there constantly and whatnot. So I'm not really quite sure what the health impacts are, but anything that's used here has been approved by DNR and needs to be reported to DNR. So
And they have a log or a list of the maintenance or work that has been done and what was used at this specific site.
correct.
Yes, they do. And they had also shared the chemical name with Mr. Ponzer.
Uh-huh.
I had a phone conversation with him where he shared that, and I forget what it is, but it made sense that it was blue when he said it. It's cobalt blue maybe. But but then the recommendation that, and I think they covered this in there, is that the property owners, I think, should all be notified before an application,
Yeah.
so that they know that their dogs should not be down in there playing around during the pertinent time that it's, when it's still working. And quite honestly, this is not meant to be, a dog run or a people playground or anything. It's a detention pond. But obviously, it's not fenced, and people can certainly go down there and be in there. So I thought if we were able to be sure that adjoining property owners were notified, that would give them a heads up as to what was happening, why it was happening, and when not to tread on those grasses or whatever.
Stronger, earlier communication and a little more very just clear, here's what's happening and why, and also like here are some potential impacts.
Yeah, people are a lot more welcoming to information they receive beforehand.
Yeah.
Because then they know what's going on and you don't get worried about
I'm
it.
assuming Public Works has a schedule for these things.
Yeah, I would assume so.
I would, even like sharing that schedule ahead of time. This is my neighborhood association, so I live like a block from here. Like sharing that with the neighborhood association would also probably we can help
Right.
get the word out if you wanted to. But yeah, its primary purpose here is to help our homes not flood. But it also just happens to be a really cool native planting area because they're good at taking up water. And I've dealt with phragmites. They are ridiculously hard to get rid of. I don't know how you like naturally get rid of them unless you just have like a team of people with shovels for, even then I don't know if you get rid of them. And that slows down water infiltration and making the stormwater not usable. It makes it not function. So I understand why they need to, but I think the communication would really go a long way.
Just like everything in life, I think it just comes down to it needs more communication.
Communication, then you say transparency, and then you can't say our government is just putting the screws to us and they don't care.
Yeah.
This is not the only area in the city that is like this, though.
Yeah.
So if other areas are also being treated for whatever reason, we
Yes.
also need to, I think, be proactive in making sure that those adjoining neighbors are notified, or neighborhood associations, or however we get that word out. I know that's hard, isn't it, to have to tell people what you're gonna do? Well, it's not something that's been used. You're used to just going out and mowing your lawn. You don't go tell all your neighbors that you're gonna go mow your lawn. It's sort of the same thing, right? It's,
I don't mean to frequently throw engineers under the bus, but I am going to pick on them a little bit. Engineers aren't very good communicators. They're really good at designing things, really good at having their schedule on time and everything, but not super good at
it's a different
telling folks
mindset.
what's going on.
Yeah, I totally get that.
I have seen the family in
And that's why they're good at their jobs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So basically, we have the report. We're making a recommendation that people be notified. It's-
I think
A few days a week, set some time limit as well. This is the plan, so that they're aware.
Oh, so that they're notified like a week ahead of time or
Week ahead or
something.
whatever,
Yeah.
whether it's a week, a couple of days at least, something like that, because, circumstances could change that, but at least they'd be aware.
I have somewhat of a differing opinion on this. I mean, I think the communication is certainly a good idea if you're going to be putting things in this area that are harmful to humans and animals. And the long-term impacts of that are essentially we have blocked off this space in the city for only one particular use, which is stormwater retention. And I think that's a very narrow conception of what a public space could be and what this space could be in the future. We have water going into this area. Essentially, irrigation of our street systems is headed to this place. And if we say wanted to build a park in the future, and we wanted to have people interacting with this space. You know, let's just say a trail right through the middle of it. It's still an active stormwater retention pond, but you know, you're inviting people to have more interaction with these native plants, not just, oh, driving by and that looks nice. You know, I feel like we're kind of dooming it to that end of just being a retention pond if we treat it, you know, with these pesticides and don't think about any future like public uses of it.
I love the sentiment, but this is going to get, even if we don't put stuff in it, it gets the worst of everything. I personally would probably not let my kid play in it. There's going to be oil from the street going in there. There's going to be pesticides from people's yards. Like, this is where all the junk gets collected. That's what stormwater ponds are. We try to make them look pretty by putting native plantings on them because they work very well. But even if we don't put pesticides in it, even if we don't put all those chemicals in it, they're going to get it from the neighbors and from it's collecting from a huge basin, and that all that rainwater is bringing all the gross stuff with it. So that's kind of what their purpose is, though.
Presumably, like saving the lake.
Yeah.
From those
So that's
contaminants.
the idea, is that it doesn't go into it doesn't go in our drinking water. 2, it doesn't go into a river or stream. It's supposed to go, everything bad and nasty is supposed to go here first. It's supposed to get treated, it's supposed to get biofiltered, and then it's supposed to get kicked out back into our system where we can then treat it again. And then hopefully when we're putting it into Lake Winnebago, it is an extremely clean product. So these are kind of like the front line of taking nasty crap sorry, TV. But no, I love the idea of, I certainly, if there was like a trail around it, or I definitely think there's a space for, to make like these things a little bit like parky, but I don't think from like going through the middle or being able to be in there physically is
Plus
something
it's
that I would
wet.
recommend.
I mean,
It is semi-wet all the time, yeah.
Yeah, I live on a marsh, and it's not like you really want to play in there, trust me.
I've tried to walk in.
But I do. I mean, Jake, I appreciate your, you know, sort of elevating this kind of cautionary tale in our consciousness, which is ultimately, right, thinking about if this is an area that essentially is acting like as a filter for our water, you know. I know there are oftentimes the sort of only last resort is chemical application, but right, it is also counterintuitive that this thing is designed and meant to filter out all the bad stuff that Joe just talked about. Well, now we're sort of increasing, you know, greatly in concentration, even more like direct chemical application to this space that is meant to clean water. So, you know, I mean, I understand that there is a schedule and a maintenance, you know, there's kind of a regime of maintenance that needs to happen with this stuff. I think it might also just provide us with maybe some other opportunities for other avenues of communication and education for people about like why invasive species, right? Like why keeping invasive species at bay matters, so that we don't have to keep using, right, these really harsh chemicals.
Yeah, if there were no invasive species, this would be a moot point. We would not
Yeah.
have to use chemicals. We would not have to. It would be a prairie. It would function. It would, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
just-
think maybe a better way to look at it might be that those, whatever they were, the tall, ugly things that were in the 2017 picture, think of that as like the cancer that's invaded there, and what they put on there is chemotherapy. But then when they're done, everything's healthy and happy again. And sometimes you do have to treat something with poison to make the rest of it okay. And I think that that's kind of the way I would view this. Me
But again,
personally,
I
that's
very
great.
much like the sentiment. I very much think that these structures can, maybe not this one in particular, but I think we need to do a better job at incorporating stormwater features into like parks and have them
Mhm.
maybe not be like directly usable, but have them be sort of an amenity.
Mhm.
And I think when we like purchase like lots like this to put stormwater on, it would have been great if 20 years ago they said we're going to lob off the back, like, I don't know, a third of it, and it's going to be a park instead of just, I don't know. I'm getting into the weeds now, but.
Getting into the weeds.
Yeah, getting into the weeds.
Oh, I love it. Well, there's always a woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, yes. Hindsight is 20/20.
Of course.
Any further discussion on the, are you feeling okay, Jay?
Yeah, thank you for the clarification, because
Yeah.
I feel like there are other management techniques, but it would require people to be there, right? And so if we're really
Yeah.
walling it off and saying, you can't be in here, I don't know any other treatments for those invasive species,
Yeah.
other than
Right.
human interaction. And so if we can't have human interaction because there's already contaminants there, it's really tough, but,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our sustainability-related plans update. I think this is good news, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
Well, not really huge updates, but the comprehensive energy plan, staff sent the consultant information either in December or January, and I think they're still just kind of plugging through that. There's a lot to digest and, start that process. And then the sustainability plan, we're still having bi-weekly check-ins. And then we are working on planning interviews with like department heads and managers, and then also trying to like schedule more stakeholder interviews, kind of where you would all come in and whatnot. So that more information to come with that. Hopefully later this month, next month. So
More information later this month, next month, or the stakeholder interviews would be later this month or next month?
more information like when those would be scheduled and whatnot. I can say like our staff interviews. So we're doing the mandatory staff training that's happening like mid-March, and then we're kind of shooting to have those department head and manager interviews the following week, just because it'll be fresh in everybody's mind. So I'm thinking like public stakeholder interviews will probably not occur until after that in like April, possibly May. So first step would just be information on those interviews, and then a schedule for when those would occur.
So the departments are scheduled for the classes?
For the trainings?
Trainings,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Okay. I just,
Yeah.
and that's what I thought I heard you say, and that will be sometime through the middle of March. Obviously, it
Correct.
doesn't all happen the same day.
Okay, and catch me up on what that's
The
about.
training?
Yeah, please.
So,
Or just the plan and like background of the plan and everything.
Background of the plan.
Okay, so the comprehensive energy plan, so we received a grant to hire a consultant to do like an energy plan of all of the municipal buildings, or at least like the hot ones, like City Hall, the library, those buildings. And then the
Okay.
sustainability plan, we got ARPA funding to do an update to the current sustainability plan. So a consultant is helping with that update. And this time around, we're trying to make it all-encompassing, including all city departments as well as public stakeholders.
The goal being to find ways to reduce energy consumption, be more energy efficient, or what?
For the
The
For-
ultimate goal is to be
Yeah.
the point of it all.
For both of, I guess, the comprehensive energy plan, yes, figure
Mhm.
out what building we're using the most energy at, and then hopefully some implementation.
I think
Find ways to
practices,
reduce
yeah.
energy
Yeah,
consumption.
and then-
the sustainability plan, I think, is more wider scoped. I
Yeah.
think in the last one, we got some of like the native planting stuff out of that.
Mhm.
But it's like a community-wide, how can we reduce energy, how can we be more sustainable type of.
Yeah, when we hired a consultant, I think there was maybe like 8 to 10 different like big categories that we were hoping they would focus on and provide, some strategies and goals on how to achieve that or how to better that as a city. So.
Right.
And Paul, I'd be happy to meet with you sometime in the next month and kind of bring you up to date on the history of this board and the different plans we've had and how we do
A
things.
few of the
So-
other details, the
Right.
backstories.
I think
Yeah.
Margie's been the chair since its inception. How long have you?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, has it?
I'm
Some
the
of it's-
last remaining original member.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's, it's pretty obvious, but there's a few other ongoing, I can tell, and I suppose if you went back in the archives and read a couple years of old notes or something, you might catch me up. On the other hand, if you could give me the crib notes, that'd be awesome. A couple of weeks maybe.
We'll take care of that. We'll schedule that.
Sure.
I had just one more comment, since we're talking
Yes.
about the comprehensive plan. Wanted to give a shout out to the city of Sun Prairie, who has achieved 100% renewable electricity on all municipal buildings. So that's just something for us to look forward to, that this can be done. Sun Prairie is similar in population to Oshkosh, and just overall providing electricity, EV chargers, talking about heat pumps, traffic lights, and entirely clean energy. So
What did they use? Just, is it mostly solar, or they
lots
have
of
another,
solar and
another big?
other like heat pumps.
Okay.
So this one was focused on the electricity. So I encourage all of you to check out their website. There's more details on there about that.
Hmm.
Yes, I had seen, they've been held up as the place to look.
Yeah, it's actually the first city in Wisconsin who's completed
Yeah.
100%, and
That's
that's
really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow.
So we could still be 2?
We could be number 2.
And they're not a big city. I think they're smaller. Than
They're small,
Oshkosh.
yeah, they're smaller
Not
than
that it's not
Oshkosh.
comparable, but I think that's like a more, like a community smaller than you with hypothetically less resources than you
Right.
has done this.
Proximity
So,
to Madison and
Yeah.
all that. So.
Hmm.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the sustainability-related plans discussion, update? Okay, let's move on then to agenda items for future meetings. We do have 2 on here. Is there anything in addition to this that anybody wants to make sure we put on a future meeting?
Not sure if we had at the meeting I missed, but the WLGC, the Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition, if we've had any updates or just, I know Brandon's the contact for that, but if there's been any meetings or resources that we want to talk about.
Mhm.
Yeah, can provide some of that. Yeah.
Sweet.
If the group is open to it, I think something I saw in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board that I liked was they had a time to share different events that are going on in the city. So it was kind of just like an open forum of what events do we all know about, and we kind of plug them in a particular time in the agenda. So I would move to add sustainability events to the agenda in the future.
I like that idea, and I think we should make it a standing meeting section because it might also help bolster our social media reach if we can just verbalize events that are coming up.
And along those same lines, I do have a couple of, I'm sneaking them in here, they're not really noticed, but we're not gonna mention that. The Sustainability Community Network is having another meeting. It will be on it's always on the 5th Monday of the month, which means it happens 4 times a year.
I was
and
gonna
it's
say,
in-
how often does that really happen?
It happens 4 times a year and it's in March.
Yeah.
So if you are interested in attending that, I have the information, and we're all welcome, but it happens this month. This time it's going to be in Greenville, and I think we meet at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I know that makes it troublesome sometimes to get there, but contact me and I'll be happy to give you that info. Also, I wanted to tell you that I did attend the recycling. I went to Recycling 101, and it was amazing. And as Kelly Ryer, who we all know is our friend in waste management, she did a fantastic job. There were probably, I would guess there were over 50 people in attendance. A lot of discussion on the way out the door, so a lot of people were really interested in this and caring. And I hope that they're doing 4 in a row, but you take them consecutively, 101, 201. And I hope that they continue to do this. But it also made me think, wait, they're making this really cool plan to get people interested to show up, because I showed up because after 401, I get to be a master recycler, just like a master gardener. Woohoo, how cool is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't we need some master of sustainability people? So I think in our downtime, we should be thinking about how we can create something fun. just throwing that out there.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we'll put something fun for a future agenda, right?
I do have maybe a cool, there's nothing that's been finalized yet, but the state is working on, through their affordable housing arm, potentially getting I think it's gonna end up being loans, but very low interest loans for, to put solar on your house. And I think the way it's structured right now is only for multifamily. But still, I think if there's been a lot of chatter at the state on like solar farms, and I think in the next couple of years, there's probably gonna try to be pushback from towns not wanting huge solar farms. And I see traction in the state. I don't like that, but I see that getting traction. But if we can move all those solar farms now into like multifamily units that are getting built throughout the city, I think could like help offset that, and is a good practice to begin with. So.
Okay, anything else for future meetings? Our next meeting is on Monday, April 7th. Be here or be square. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nobody ever opposes adjournment. It's just great.
I've always wondered what